Sarah had always been a heavy sleeper, but lately she'd been waking up to find things moved in her apartment. Food missing from the fridge, her laptop in a different position, books rearranged on shelves. Her friends said she was being paranoid. Her therapist suggested stress. But when she found the hidden door behind her bedroom wall, Sarah realized her instincts had been right all along. Someone had been gaslighting her for years. March 12, 2024, Portland, Oregon. What started as a simple water leak repair would uncover one of the most disturbing cases of stalking and invasion of privacy that investigators had ever encountered. For 5 years, 28-year-old graphic designer Sarah Mitchell had been living in what she thought was a charming Victorian rental house. She loved the high ceilings, the original hardwood floors, and the sense of privacy it gave her. But Sarah had never been alone in that house. Someone had been watching her every move, learning her routines, and slowly manipulating her environment to make her question her own sanity. If you're into psychological thrillers, home invasion mysteries, and shocking discoveries that reveal the truth about hidden predators, subscribe now and hit the bell icon. It started small. Sarah would come home from work to find her coffee mug in the sink when she was sure she'd left it on the counter. Her bedroom door would be open when she remembered closing it. Food would go missing from her refrigerator. "I thought I was losing my mind," Sarah later told police. "My friends kept telling me it was stress from work, that I was just forgetting things. But deep down I knew something was wrong." The incidents escalated over the months. Sarah would wake up to find her laptop moved to a different room, books rearranged on her shelves, her thermostat adjusted to temperatures she never set. Sometimes she'd smell cologne in her apartment, a scent she didn't recognize, but that seemed familiar. Sarah installed security cameras, changed her locks, even had the landlord inspect the house for break-ins. Nothing ever showed up on the cameras. The locks were never tampered with. The landlord found no signs of forced entry. Her therapist, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, diagnosed her with anxiety and mild paranoia, brought on by work stress and living alone for the first time since college. Sarah was experiencing what we call hypervigilance, Dr. Walsh explained. When people feel unsafe, they can become hyper-aware of small changes in their environment, sometimes imagining threats that aren't there. But Sarah's instincts were telling her something different. March 12, 2024, started like any other day. Sarah was working from her home office when she noticed water dripping from the kitchen ceiling. By afternoon, it had become a steady leak that soaked through the plaster and started damaging the hardwood floors. She called her landlord, who sent contractor Mike Rodriguez to assess the damage. The leak was coming from inside the wall, Mike later testified. "But when I looked at the building's blueprints, the plumbing shouldn't have been running through that section. Something didn't match up." Mike had to tear open a section of the kitchen wall to reach the pipes. What he found behind the drywall made him stop working and immediately call the police. "There was a door back there," he said. "A hidden door built into the wall structure, and it was recently used. The hinges were clean. The handle was worn smooth from regular use." Mike pushed open the door and shined his flashlight into the space beyond. What he saw was a fully furnished secret apartment, complete with a bed, desk, refrigerator, and dozens of monitors showing live feeds from cameras throughout Sarah's house. The secret living space was sophisticated and well-planned. Someone had illegally modified the Victorian house's structure, creating a hidden apartment that ran between the walls and extended into the basement. The apartment had everything someone would need to live comfortably. Electricity tapped from the main house's system, plumbing connected to the main water line, ventilation, and even Wi-Fi access. But most disturbing were the surveillance systems. Hidden cameras had been installed in every room of Sarah's apartment, the bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and living room. The feeds were displayed on multiple monitors, allowing the occupant to watch Sarah's every move. Detective Lisa Park, who led the investigation, had never seen anything like it. "This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment stalking situation," she said. "Someone had planned this for months, maybe years. They'd studied the building's structure, obtained building permits under false pretenses, and created the perfect hiding place to watch their victim." The apartment contained detailed logs of Sarah's daily routines. When she left for work, when she came home, what she ate, when she showered, when she went to bed. The stalker had been documenting her life with obsessive precision. DNA evidence and fingerprints found throughout the hidden apartment led police to David Chen, a 34-year-old former building contractor with a history of voyeurism charges. David had been living in the secret apartment for almost 2 years, but he'd been planning the operation much longer. Police discovered that he'd specifically targeted the Victorian house because of its age and layout, which made it easier to modify without detection. Even more disturbing, David had a history with Sarah that she was completely unaware of. He'd seen her at a coffee shop near her previous apartment and had become obsessed with her. When she moved to the Victorian house, he'd researched the property and realized it would be perfect for his plan. David had been following Sarah for over 3 years, Detective Park revealed. He knew her work schedule, her social habits, even her dating life. He'd been planning this invasion for months before she ever moved into that house. David had used his construction knowledge to modify the house while posing as a legitimate contractor hired by the previous tenant. He'd obtained fake building permits and had done the work during times when Sarah was at work. Perhaps the most sinister aspect of David's stalking was his deliberate psychological manipulation of Sarah. He hadn't just been watching her, he'd been actively gaslighting her to make her question her own sanity. David would enter Sarah's living space while she was sleeping or away from home. He'd move small items, adjust settings on her devices, and take food from her refrigerator. The goal was to make her feel like she was losing her grip on reality. This is a form of psychological torture, explained Dr. Robert Hayes, a forensic psychiatrist who evaluated David. The perpetrator gets satisfaction not just from watching the victim, but from controlling their mental state. It's about power and domination. Sarah's therapy records showed that she'd been experiencing increasing anxiety and self-doubt over the months leading up to the discovery. She'd started second-guessing her memory, wondering if she was developing mental health issues. "He was systematically destroying my confidence," Sarah said. "Every time I told someone about things moving in my apartment, they looked at me like I was crazy. I started to believe them." David had also been using the surveillance footage to learn intimate details about Sarah's life that he would then use to coincidentally appear at places she frequented, creating the illusion that they were destined to meet. David Chen was arrested at his official residence, a studio apartment across town. When police searched his apartment, they found extensive files on Sarah, including printed photographs taken from the hidden cameras and detailed plans for eventually making contact with her. David's endgame was to orchestrate a seemingly chance encounter with Sarah, Detective Park explained. He'd been studying her for so long that he believed he could predict her responses and manipulate her into a relationship. David pleaded guilty to charges including stalking, voyeurism, invasion of privacy, and illegal modification of a dwelling. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison and a permanent restraining order against Sarah. During his sentencing hearing, David showed no remorse for his actions. He told the court that he genuinely cared about Sarah and had been protecting her by watching over her. The defendant's complete lack of empathy and understanding of his victim's trauma makes him a continued threat to public safety. Judge Patricia Williams said during sentencing, "Sarah moved out of the Victorian house immediately after the discovery and has since relocated to another state. She underwent extensive therapy to deal with the trauma of learning she'd been watched and manipulated for years. The hardest part wasn't knowing he'd been watching me," Sarah said in her victim impact statement. "It was realizing that he'd made me doubt my own sanity. He'd convinced me that I was paranoid, that I couldn't trust my own instincts." The Victorian house has been completely renovated, with the hidden apartment sealed off and new security measures installed. The landlord faced fines for failing to detect the illegal modifications, though he claimed he had no knowledge of David's construction work. David's case led to changes in building permit processes and landlord inspection requirements in Portland. It also highlighted the sophisticated methods that modern stalkers can use to invade their victims' privacy. Today, Sarah advocates for stalking victims and speaks about the importance of trusting your instincts when something feels wrong in your living space. If you feel like you're being watched, if things in your home don't feel right, don't let anyone convince you that you're being paranoid, she says. Your gut feelings exist for a reason. Trust them. The case serves as a chilling reminder that predators can find incredibly creative ways to violate their victims' privacy and safety. Sometimes the greatest threat isn't someone breaking into your home, it's someone who's already living inside your walls. For more disturbing true crime cases about stalking, home invasion, and the psychology of predators, subscribe to Dark Discoveries. Because sometimes the person watching you is closer than you think.